I noticed it first in the coffee. Not the coffee itself, the way Marcus made it. 6 years, never once asked how I took it. He just knew. Dark roast, no sugar, a splash of cold water to bring the temperature down. Every time. Because he paid attention. That was what made him useful, and I think that was also what eventually became his problem. One morning, he brought me a cup without the cold water. It sat on my desk steaming. I didn't say anything. I held it and watched him walk back to his desk. Something had shifted. I run a mid-sized consultancy. 12 people, solid contracts, 15 years of careful work to get here. Marcus was my operations lead. He knew the client list, the pricing structures, the internal forecasts we hadn't made public. He knew which clients were unhappy. He knew which ones were already having quiet conversations with other firms. He knew the things that would matter if he ever decided to use them somewhere else. The signs came slowly across about 3 weeks. A Tuesday call that ran long. He closed his office door. He never did that. A file accessed at 11:40 on a Thursday night. I didn't go digging for that. Our IT system logs after-hours activity on sensitive directories and sends a summary Friday mornings. I'd been reading those summaries for years without much to note. Then his LinkedIn changed. Not openly, no new title, no announcements. The activity indicator was just different, more frequent. Someone was paying attention to him, or he was paying attention to someone. I didn't bring it up. Marcus was good at his job, occasionally very good. He also believed, not entirely without reason, that most of what he contributed went unnoticed. He'd said as much once at a conference after a few drinks. That operations work becomes invisible when it works. You only notice it when something breaks. I didn't argue with him. He wasn't wrong. He had a wife, a daughter in her first year of secondary school, a mortgage on a house that was probably a stretch when they bought it. I'm not listing those things to make a point. I'm listing them because they were part of the situation. By the 4th week, I had a clearer picture. A competitor, newer firm, well-backed, known for going after people rather than building from scratch. Had been in contact with him. I worked that out through a few separate pieces. A former colleague of mine now at that firm had been at the same industry dinner Marcus attended. Marcus's expense report had a taxi home at 1:15 a.m. The dinner wrapped at 10. Then something more direct. One of our junior analysts mentioned offhand that she'd helped Marcus put together a deck on our service delivery model. She thought it was for an internal review. It wasn't on any internal calendar. I checked. The deck was comprehensive. Our methodology, retention rates, pricing tiers, organized the way you'd organize something for an outside audience. Clean, self-explanatory, not assuming prior knowledge. The kind of document you build when someone has asked you to make a case. I sat with it for a day. If Marcus left, he wouldn't just take his salary somewhere else. He'd take 6 years of how we operate, 3 client relationships that ran through him personally, and enough internal detail to give a competitor a real advantage for the better part of 2 years. 2 of our spring renewals, together about 30% of annual revenue, had threads that connected directly to him. One of those clients had told me plainly, at dinner the previous autumn, that Marcus was the reason they'd stayed through a rough patch 2 years prior. not a compliment. Information. I ran through a few options: termination, clean exit, NDA, settlement big enough to avoid a fight. Legally, we were probably fine. Reputationally, less clear. Marcus was well regarded, and a sudden departure during a renewal cycle would prompt questions from clients I didn't want to answer. I also considered going straight at him, naming what I suspected, seeing how he responded. But that would force an outcome before I fully understood what I was dealing with. I thought about it for one evening. Then I stopped. In those same weeks, Marcus had gone quiet in meetings. For years, he'd been the person who said that won't work before anyone else was willing to. Right often enough that I'd come to rely on it. But he stopped. He agreed with things. He said sounds good when previously he would have asked 4 questions. A person who's checked out stops caring what direction things go. One afternoon, I passed his open door and caught him minimizing his screen. Fast, practiced. The kind of thing that looks natural only if you've done it a few times before. I kept walking. By that point, I was fairly confident he wasn't still weighing the other offer. He'd made some version of a decision. He just hadn't acted on it yet, which made the timing matter. I scheduled a quarterly review.